One little disclaimer on the series before we get started. These clips will be chopped up because for each week that I finish a book, I will be talking about it at the end of that week, so I may not have the same outfit on unless something weird happens. But anyway, just a heads up.
Pull my heart out of my chest, train my mind so I forget. Sink your teeth into my bones, dig me out, then fill the hole.
Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, we are going to be discussing the books that I've read in April. I am really excited to start this series of talking about the books that I read each month because I love talking about the books that I'm reading, and I just thought what better way to do that than to make a video out of it. So we are going to start with the first book that I read, and that book is Another Day by David Levithan. So this is actually a book series. The first book in the series is called Every Day, and they've actually made a movie inspired by the first book in the series. I have this really weird thing where I don't want to finish a series right off. I want to prolong it, which isn't really that healthy for me because sometimes I forget what happens in the beginning of them and I have to remind myself, but I like to space out a series. I don't know. I've always been like that. So when I first read Every Day, that was, I want to say 2018, 2019, maybe even before. I think 2018, I think is when I read it. It was quite a few years ago. I remember I loved the book so much. It had such an interesting premise, which kind of correlates to this one, so I'll get to that in a minute. But I just loved that book so much. So I was really excited to pick up the series again and start it. So this is kind of like what Stephenie Meyer and E.L. James has done with their books, that they've done perspectives from another character. So this book is actually from the perspective of the girl involved in the book. And I'm not going to give, or I'm going to try not to give too much away in these because I want you all to maybe read them if you so choose to want to. But anyway, I'll read the premise of this one. It says, every day is the same for Rhiannon. She has accepted her life, convinced herself that she deserves her distant, temperamental boyfriend Justin, even established guidelines by which to live. Don't be too needy. Avoid upsetting him. Never get your hopes up. Until the morning, everything changes. Justin seems to see her, to want to be with her for the first time, and they share a perfect day. A perfect day Justin doesn't remember the next morning. Confused, depressed, and desperate for another day as great as that one, Rhiannon starts questioning everything. Then one day, a stranger tells her that the Justin she spent that day with, the one who made her feel like a real person, wasn't Justin at all. So when I picked this up, I was like, you know, I'm gonna love it. I loved the first one. And not really. I mean, I have conflicting feelings about this book. The way that the author writes is really good, even beautiful at parts. Like the way that he describes things, it's just like, wow, that is perfectly said. Or, you know, that was a really beautiful way to put that. So it's not the writing, it's honestly the character. The writing was beautiful and like her thoughts and stuff, like for some things. But then when it actually got down to the nitty gritty of her and her character, I hated it. Like, she's just, I don't know. Other people have the same opinion because I looked, not to influence my own opinion, but I was just like, do other people share that opinion? And they do. It's just the main character. Sometimes she's too whiny, and sometimes she is too needy, and she's wishy-washy. I don't know. It's just the way that she sometimes thinks, and everything. I was just like, oh my gosh, get over yourself. So I couldn't dive in too much with this. The first book explores the thoughts of the other person involved in this book, and they were just a beautiful character. If you know what this is, you will understand why I say that. Well, I can say what that is, because you kind of need to read the first. I definitely recommend reading every day before this one. So what I'm talking about is there is a, for lack of better words, spirit named A, who every day wakes up in a different body. So they can wake up in a boy's body one day and then a girl's body the next day, and it's never the same person twice. So they just wake up constantly in another body, so you don't really know what their gender is. Like, it's just a soul, for, again, lack of better terminology. Even when I was trying to describe this book to my mom, because we watched the movie together, I was like, I don't really know how to describe this, but the movie is actually pretty good. I recommend watching it. That's also something about me. If I find out a book has a movie, or if I'm watching a movie and it's like based on the book, I have to either watch the movie or read the book, whichever one came first. So finally we watched the movie and it was good. Fun fact, the same person that plays Katie Heron in the new Mean Girls plays Rhiannon in that. So she was actually a little bit more likable in the movie than she is the book, which I was super surprised about. But on Goodreads, I gave this book a 4 out of 5, just for the fact that, you know, the writing was really good, the story is good, it's just the character. I couldn't vibe with the character. And, you know, I reserve a 5-star book for one that I either can't put down, leaves a lasting effect on me, or like something came completely out of left field that I didn't think would happen, that just shocks me, and I'm like, whoa, I love this book. So the fact that I didn't click with the main character was like, that's why you give a 4. Honestly, I would probably give it a 4.5, but I think a 4 is good because it's the main character. If it was like a side character, that'd be something different. But yeah, so I definitely recommend reading the first one, though I cannot sing enough praises for the first one that I can remember of it. But I've looked at what the next book in the series is going to be, and it looks like it's really interesting, so I'm actually excited to read the next one, and it's from A's perspective again, so I'm really excited to see where this book series goes. But overall, I would give this 4 books out of 5. Alright, so the next book that I read this month is Anastasia and Her Sisters by Carolyn Meyer. This is an author that I've read before. She does a lot of historical fiction books. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, this is the Anastasia that the cartoon movie was based on. Loosely based on. I love that movie. So, yeah, I will read you what it is about. It says, 13-year-old Anastasia Romanova lives the extravagant life of the Russian princess that she is, dressing in beautiful clothes and traveling from palace to palace. As she grows up, she sees unrest in the streets of St. Petersburg and feels more and more unsafe. In 1917, when Anastasia is 17, her way of life is changed forever when her father, Tsar Nicholas II, I cannot talk today, is forced to abdicate the throne. Anastasia cannot understand how her father, who always seemed so kind, could have enemies. Suddenly, instead of living a fairy tale existence, Anastasia is trying not to show how afraid she is. Told in the voice of the strong and mysterious Anastasia, Carolyn Meyer's story of Russian Revolution unfolds through invented diary entries that captured the drama of this fascinating time in history. So, like I said, Carolyn Meyer has written other books. I know that she actually did one for, I don't Oh no, we're not starting this. Maggie, have you made your YouTube debut? This is Magnolia Jane. Say hi. Hello. Will you let me film? Anyway, like I was saying, I forget what the official title is, but I know that there was the Dear America series where they had like fictional young girls tell the story of different time periods in America through diaries. I loved that series as a kid. And they actually did a Royals version, like they had Marie Antoinette. Read that, devoured it, loved it. Also, Carolyn Meyer did Anastasia's, and I remember really liking that one. So I picked this up thinking that I would like it just as well. And this is another book I feel kind of about, because normally I love historical fiction, and I'm not saying that Carolyn Meyer is not a great writer. She is a really great writer, but the problem with this book is it was kind of boring at first, because I don't know, it was, again, I don't want to say that she's a bad writer, but I don't know if it was the storytelling or like nothing really of substance happened, but it was literally just how Anastasia lived her day-to-day life, and it was pretty much the same, and it was kind of boring. The book didn't pick up until the Russian Revolution started and they got in prison, and then I was like, okay, this is good. So I think if she may have done like a little bit of Anastasia in the beginning and then really focused more on the revolution part, that it would have been a very excellent book. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting, but honestly, I'd rather watch Anastasia movie, even though it's not exactly historically accurate, but the music in it. And fun fact, Rasputin, who is the bad guy in there, who is a real character, and he is in this book, his song that he does was sung by Jim Cummings, who is Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and a whole bunch of other Disney folk that would take about 20 years of my life to say what all he has done, but I'm a Winnie the Pooh girl, so gotta say that. Anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to have to give this 3.5 stars, because again, the way my system goes, 4 stars is for those books that were really good, but it didn't have that extra oomph that it needs for me to really remember the book or to resonate with it. So this would have had that, like I said, if it focused more on the Russian Revolution. I almost said the Industrial Revolution, wrong revolution. If it focused more on the Russian Revolution. And maybe another reason why this didn't click with me as much is because I'm not as well versed in Russian history as I am in other things. Like, for example, if this was a book about Marie Antoinette, I probably would have loved it. And in fact, I've read several historical novels, whether they've been young adult, children, of Marie Antoinette, and I love every single one because I love learning about Marie Antoinette, that time period. I love that. So maybe that's why I didn't really resonate with this as much, because like, I don't want to say it's not something that I'm interested in, but it's not one of my passions. Like, I could talk to you about Marie Antoinette, the American Revolution, and, you know, all of that for days and days and days and days. But with Anastasia, I don't really know that much, so maybe that's why I didn't really. Would you think it would be the other way around? Like, if I really knew a whole lot about something, it would get kind of boring because I wouldn't learn more. But I don't know. It didn't click for me, and I really wanted it to. So I would give this 3.5 books out of 5. Hopefully the next one will be our breaking point and we'll get a really good read. Alright guys, so the third book of this month that I read is The Burnout by Sophie Kinsella. Also, do not judge my version of this book. I bought it off of Thrift Books, and sometimes you get old library books on there. But anyway, so what the burnout is about, that Sasha has had it. She cannot bring herself to respond to another inane, urgent, but obviously not at all urgent, email or participate in the corporate employee joyfulness program. She hasn't seen her friends in months. SEX, I don't know if I can say that on here or not. Seems like a lot of effort. Even cooking dinner takes far too much planning. Sasha has hit a wall. Armed with good intentions to drink kale smoothies, try yoga, and find peace, she heads to the seaside resort she loved as a child. But it's the off-season. The hotel is a dilapidated shambles, and she has to share the beach with the resort's only other occupant, a grumpy guy named Finn, who seems as stressed as Sasha. How can she commune with nature when he's sitting on her favorite rock watching her? Nor can they agree on how best to alleviate their burnout. Sasha, manifesting wild swimming, Finn, drinking whiskey, getting pizza delivered to the beach. When curious messages seemingly addressed to Sasha and Finn begin to appear in the sand, the two are forced to talk about everything. How did they get so burned out? Can either of them remember something they used to love? Answer, surfing. And the question they try and fail to ignore, what does the energy between them, flaring even in the face of their bone-deep exhaustion, signify? Why couldn't I say that? This book has turned it around for me this month as far as reading goes. I love Sophie Kinsella, in case you don't know, which if you don't, hello. She is the author of the Confessions of a Shopaholic series. I love Becky Bloomwood. Like, she is my spirit animal. I actually have a pillow over there of a quote from the movie that she says. I recommend the movie too. It's a mixture of the first and second book. So once you read them too, you're like, okay, I can get with this. Not even going to talk about who they got to play Luke Brandon, but anyway, that's beside the point. But I love Sophie Kinsella's books. I don't think that there's been a book by her that I've read that I have disliked. Like, I love the Shopaholic series. I love her other ones. And she even did a young adult book, and that one was amazing. Like, that was one of my favorite books that I read by her. So this is her newest, I think. Yeah, newest book that has come out, and it did not disappoint. I mean, there was a mystery in there. It, of course, had her wit and her voice. Like, you could tell a Sophie Kinsella book by reading it, because she has a certain tone and some of the situations that happens to the characters. Like, I was talking to my mom about it. I think she may have read like the first Shopaholic book, but she has watched the movies with me several times, and I told her a little bit about what happened in here, and she was like, yep, that sounds like her. So, I mean, it had that, and I could definitely relate to the struggles that the characters had, because for quite a while, not now, but back when I had my two previous part-time jobs, I did feel burnout, especially because I didn't really feel appreciated in my job, which, you know, I don't want to, I say don't want, but, you know, it's not like I need every day to go into work and someone like give me a round of applause or anything, but it was just everything that I did was either nitpicked or there was something that seemed to be wrong, even though I was giving it my all. But that's beside the point. So I completely related to the characters on that, but it was just so funny, so inspiring at points, and I just loved this book. But there is some sad news. Sophie Kinsella actually posted quite a while ago that she found out that she had a rare form of brain cancer. I believe she's on the mend now. I will leave her Instagram or social medias down in the description so you can check that out for yourself. But I was just so heartbroken when I read that, because I was like, oh, we don't need any more cancer or anything like that in this life. But, and I'm not just saying like go read her books because of that. I have seriously loved Sophie Kinsella for years. She is an author that I can pick up, and I know that I'm going to love her books. I've read quite a bit of them. I did like not stop reading her, but I kind of lost her new books, and between like grad school and everything. So there's a few that I need to catch up on, but otherwise I've read most of her books. I just love her. And this was a really good book, so definitely go check this out. And I know that she just redid the audiobooks for, I don't know if it was the whole Shopaholic series or just the first few ones, but I would love to do the audiobooks for that book because I love Becky so much. Like I said, she's my spirit animal. But yeah, so the Burnout by Sophie Kinsella definitely gets 5 books out of 5. All right, so we are finally at the last book of April. And this one I actually read on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical version in front of me, but it is Georgie All Along. I want to say Georgie All the Way for some reason, but it is called Georgie All Along. And the reason why I have this on my Kindle is because it was actually free with Prime, and I had it on my wish list. So I was like, free Kindle on my wish list, why not? So what it is about is longtime personal assistant Georgie Mulcahy has made a career out of putting others before herself. When an unexpected upheaval sends her away from her hectic job in LA and back to her hometown, Georgie must confront an uncomfortable truth. Her own wants and needs have always been a disconcertingly blank page. So this was a really good book. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it even more because it was free, but that's beside the point. It definitely had Sophie Kinsella vibes, which is funny because that's one of the last books I read was one of hers. And it had a really good storyline. It was pretty good paced. Sometimes it was a little bit slow in areas. Sometimes it kind of was a little too fast, but you know, it was good. It was the predictable love story, which, like, it's called a love story, so you're probably going to go, hello, it's called a love story. But I like them, but I don't. Especially, like, the main character, like, love interest, he seems too good to be true. I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen any man act the way he does. But anyway, this was a really good book. I had really great characters. I enjoyed all of them. I don't think I really hated any of them except for like one, but he deserves to be hated. And once you read the book, you'll understand who I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a really good read. I liked the concept of it because, again, it kind of reminded me of the last book that I read, how she was kind of in this rut and she was stuck and she didn't know where she was wanting to go, what she was wanting to do. And I relate to that a lot because quite a few years ago and up to a certain point, I had felt like that. I'm just now getting to a place where I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. I'm good. But I had felt like that for a long time. So that's why this book and the previous book really resonated with me. But because it is one of those like stereotypical love stories, I do have to give it a 4 out of 5. Just because like the plot was predictable, you know, what would happen. And then this isn't really a spoiler, but just in case if you're wanting to read the book for yourself, spoiler alert, but the characters had this thing of like they would fight and then they'd be together and then they'd fight and then they'd be together. That's one reason why I hated Pride and Prejudice. I was just like, get over yourselves, either get together or stay away. That's why I liked the zombies in there, because at least it had something else besides I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. But it had that. Also, I wish that the last chapter had a little bit more of an update than it did. It was only like about a year in the future, so we kind of know where the characters ended up, but we don't really. But with that being said, the way that the book was framed, to understand why the author did that, I just like things to be fully like wrapped up. I hate for there to be plot holes or like things that are left unsaid unless there's a continuing book or unless it does something for the story. And again, I understand that, but it was kind of, there was like this big build up with these characters and it kind of it kind of was predictable where it went. But I would definitely recommend anyone to read it. Definitely don't think it's as good as a Sophie Kinsella book, but it does give that vibe. The humor in it was kind of like that, and some of the situations it was in it, I was like, okay, that's totally something that would happen in a Sophie Kinsella book. But yeah, overall 4 books out of 5. And that wraps up what I read for the month of April. Basically what I try to do is I try to like vary my books, so I'm not getting like all young adult or all romance or all dark sometimes. But there's just sometimes that a book just speaks to you and it's like, read me, and you have to answer it and you have to read it. But I've got a big pile over there to get through. I've got some books in my bookshelf that I haven't read, and I've got some on the way from thrift books, but we're not going to talk about that. Yeah, hopefully we're not going back in time. Hopefully April will bring us some really good book reads. But let me know if you've read any of these books. If you have a differing opinion than mine, I would love to read those, but be kind to one another. You know, we all have opinions. They may be different, they may be the same, but we have to respect each other's opinions. But I definitely want to know what you think. Check me out on Instagram if you want more of me than what you see on here. And don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.
All that's left is a window to my soul. Come and get it.